The air above John F. Kennedy International Airport did not merely feel cold with the biting chill of an oncoming metropolitan evening. It vibrated with an unmistakable electric frequency that could only be summoned by a singular global phenomenon. Long before the heavy metal body of the chartered Boeing aircraft pierced through the heavy gray overcast of the New York sky, the perimeter of the terminal had already transformed into a living, breathing ocean of purple light. Tens of thousands of passionate fans, representing an unbroken coalition of cultures, languages, and generations, had surged past conventional security boundaries, transforming concrete arrival zones into a sacred grounds of devotion. They carried hand-painted banners that flickered under the harsh amber glow of highway lamps, their collective heartbeats moving in sync with a rhythm that had crossed oceans, time zones, and years of painful separation. This was not just another celebrity sighting or an ordinary transit stop for international travelers. This was the epicenter of a cultural earthquake that shook the foundation of modern music history. New York City, a metropolis that prided itself on being unimpressed by royalty, celebrities, or political icons, had completely surrendered its streets, its airspace, and its collective consciousness to the arrival of 5 members of BTS. The magnitude of the scene unfolding outside the terminal doors was staggering, a testament to an unbreakable bond forged through a decade of shared emotional vulnerability, artistic triumph, and unprecedented global milestones. Every single exit corridor was completely choked with eager faces, cameras raised high like a forest of digital torches, all straining for a microscopic fraction of a second to witness history unfold. Rumors had swirled across encrypted channels and social media timelines for 48 hours straight, tracking every knot of the aircraft's flight path across the Atlantic. The sheer pressure of the crowd forced local port authorities to deploy emergency contingency protocols, lining the steel barricades with rows of security personnel who looked entirely overwhelmed by the sheer, joyous scale of the human tide. Yet beneath the roaring chants and the deafening swells of synchronized fan chants, an underlying current of intense curiosity pulsed through the freezing air. Whispers darted from person to person through the surging masses about the absence of the full 7-member lineup, creating an electric mystery that heightened every pulse and intensified every gaze fixed upon the sliding automatic glass doors. As the private VIP shuttle finally detached from the tarmac and navigated toward the secure hangar bay, the atmosphere reached a deafening crescendo. The first figure to emerge from the tinted vehicle cut a striking, unmistakable silhouette against the floodlights. Kim Namjoon, the brilliant intellectual anchor and fearless leader of the group, stepped out into the biting wind with an aura of composed, understated dignity. Dressed in a minimalist, tailored dark overcoat that captured the sophisticated pulse of Manhattan, offered a slow, contemplative nod to the roaring crowd, his eyes scanning the endless sea of purple with a depth of emotion that spoke volumes. Behind him, stepping out with an effortless, youthful swagger that immediately set social media timelines ablaze, came Jungkook. The youngest member of the global powerhouse radiated an effortless cool, wearing layered streetwear that blended high fashion with comfortable rebellion, pausing for a split second to flash a reassuring, boyish grin that sent shockwaves through the front rows of the barricade. Jungkook's gaze was sharp, alert, and deeply appreciative, absorbing the sheer scale of the New York welcome with wide-eyed wonder. Moving in close coordination, the next arrivals brought an immediate shift in the visual and emotional landscape of the terminal floor. Park Jimin stepped forward, his graceful posture and ethereal presence turning every camera lens in his direction. Jimin radiated a profound warmth, offering soft, reverent bows and placing his gloved hand over his heart in a silent gesture of pure gratitude that reduced seasoned reporters to absolute speechlessness. His hair caught the harsh terminal lights, framing a visage of timeless elegance that felt straight out of a cinematic masterpiece. Right beside him, bringing an avant-garde artistic flair that completely redefined airport fashion, was Kim Taehyung. V emerged with a captivating, mysterious poise, wearing a look that balanced vintage noir styling with contemporary comfort. Taehyung's gentle, piercing eyes locked onto the distant corners of the crowd, and with a slow, deliberate wave of his hand, he communicated a universe of unspoken affection to the millions watching through live streams across the globe. The collective synergy of these 4 members alone would have been enough to conquer any stage on Earth, but the dynamic completion of the group's frontline rested with the 5th arrival. Stepping into the bright lights with a brilliant, infectious radiance that cut right through the exhaustion of an exhausting transcontinental flight was Jung Ho-seok. JHope brought an immediate burst of kinetic energy, his expressive styling and vibrant disposition injecting a wave of pure euphoria into the freezing New York night. He bounced slightly on his heels, throwing bright finger hearts toward the upper observation decks where fans had climbed onto industrial structures just to catch a glimpse of his smile. The presence of these 5 distinct souls, Namjoon, Hoseok, Jimin, Taehyung, and Jungkook, created an intoxicating tapestry of talent, style, and emotional resonance. Yet, as they moved together in a tight protective formation clanked by security detail, a lingering tension hung thick in the atmosphere. The glaring absence of the remaining 2 members cast an intriguing veil over the entire operation, transforming a routine international press arrival into a high-stakes narrative puzzle. Every single eye was glued to the moving group, searching for clues, scanning the trailing vehicles for signs of the missing pieces, and wondering what hidden strategy lay behind this staggered global deployment. The security cordon strained violently as the group neared the final transit threshold, the roar of the crowd cresting like a tidal wave against a seawall. Microphones thrust forward by international media outlets captured the frantic shuffling of boots, the clicking of thousands of camera shutters, and the breathless gasps of fans who had camped out for days in sub-zero temperatures. The interior of the VIP transport convoy was a stark contrast to the absolute bedlam raging outside on the New York tarmac. Tinted windows filtered out the blinding glare of camera flashes, plunging the leather-lined cabin into a hushed contemplative sanctuary, where the heavy weight of their mission finally settled over the 5 members. Namjoon immediately pulled out a sleek tablet, his fingers scrolling through real-time global analytics as engagement metrics from the airport arrival shattered previous internet records within minutes. Across from him, Jimin leaned his head back against the cushioned headrest, letting out a long, slow breath that released hours of accumulated travel fatigue. Yet despite the physical exhaustion etched onto their faces, an electric current of anticipation hummed between them. They were back in the United States, standing on the precipice of a monumental promotional blitz, yet the air inside the vehicle felt charged with a deeper, more calculated tension. The small, seemingly insignificant moment back at the terminal door, that split-second glance between Jungkook and Namjoon, began to echo with massive implications as the convoy sped away from the airport toward an undisclosed Manhattan skyscraper. To truly understand the seismic weight of this New York landing, one must examine the broader constellation of the group, and how every single member plays an irreplaceable role in the grand design of BTS. While Jin and Suga were momentarily positioned elsewhere due to intersecting global schedules and post-enlistment strategic rollouts, their spiritual and creative presence permeated every single action taken by the 5 members on the ground. Jin's immaculate comedic timing and global brand dominance continued to echo through viral interview clips circulating concurrently across American morning shows, while Suga's underground production genius and fierce dedication to musical autonomy remained the invisible blueprint steering their upcoming studio projects. The OT7 bond, the unbreakable sacred number 7, was never fractured by distance or physical separation. Rather, it was being deployed across multiple continents like a masterclass in global chess. Every member represented a distinct elemental force. Namjoon the mind, Jin the charm, Suga the soul, JHope the rhythm, Jimin the grace, Taehyung the vision, and Jungkook the power. Together, even when physically divided across geographic lines, they operated as an unstoppable hive mind that commanded the attention of the entire planet. As the convoy cut through the glittering canyons of New York City, past towering digital billboards flashing teasers of their upcoming projects, the conversation inside the vehicle shifted from casual observations to tactical focus. Hoseok leaned forward, tapping Namjoon on the knee, and pointing toward a live broadcast playing on the vehicle's embedded media screen. The anchor was frantically discussing the unexpected nature of their sudden departure from Incheon straight into the heart of Manhattan just hours after completing their historic domestic milestone. Social media feeds were melting down under the hashtag New York Melodac, with millions of tweets dissecting every millisecond of their airport appearance. Fans were analyzing the embroidery on Taehyung's jacket, the specific model of headphones around Jungkook's neck, and the subtle positioning of Jimin's fingers as he waved goodbye to the Seoul press. In the world of ARMY, nothing is ever random. Every thread, every color palette, and every accessory is a breadcrumb left deliberately by the members to guide their followers through an intricate narrative labyrinth that spans albums, music videos, and public appearances. The vehicles finally swept into the subterranean security garage of a premier Manhattan production facility. doors sliding open to a phalanx of elite private security and high-ranking network executives. As the 5 members stepped out into the concrete and steel enclosure, the true scale of their American takeover began to come into sharp focus. This was not merely a promotional stop for an album or a standard talk show circuit. This was the staging ground for a massive global reveal that had been kept under strict non-disclosure agreements for over 6 months. Rumors had long whispered about a landmark collaborative venture bridging Eastern pop royalty with Western media giants, but tonight the pieces were finally clicking into place. As Namjoon adjusted his collar and led his brothers toward the private elevator bank, his stride carried the undeniable confidence of a general marching toward a historic victory. Behind him, Jimin, Taehyung, Jungkook, and Hoseok moved with absolute unity, their individual styles melting into a singular, formidable front that commanded immediate respect from every executive in the room. Yet as the elevator doors prepared to close, cutting off the view of the frantic production crew gathered in the corridor, that one tiny detail from the airport resurfaced with terrifying clarity. Rewinding the mental tape of Jungkook and Namjoon's shared glance at the terminal reveals a hidden truth that changes the entire trajectory of what is to come. It was not a glance of fatigue, nor was it a simple acknowledgement of the roaring crowd. It was a synchronized confirmation, a silent signal that the timeline they had publicly shared was only a carefully constructed illusion masking a much larger surprise. Industry insiders have long suspected that the physical division of the 7 members was a deliberate decoy designed to throw international media off the scent of a simultaneous multi-city drop, while 5 members conquered the eastern seaboard of the United States, creating an undeniable media explosion in New York. The remaining gears were turning silently elsewhere, poised to trigger a synchronized global shockwave that would catch the entire entertainment industry completely off guard. The heavy steel doors of the elevator sealed shut, plunging the shaft into a vertical ascent that mirrored the meteoric rise of the group itself. In less than 24 hours, these 5 men had transitioned from the historic stages of Seoul to the freezing asphalt of JFK Airport and now into the nerve center of American broadcasting. But the real story, the hidden narrative pulsing beneath the flashing cameras and the roaring chants of thousands of screaming fans, is that this New York explosion is only the opening salvo of a much grander war. As the digital screen inside the elevator ticked upward through the high floors of the Manhattan skyscraper, the air grew thick with the electric promise of the unknown. Every fan watching from home, every media outlet scrambling for headlines, and every industry rival holding their breath is about to realize that you can never truly predict the next move of BTS. The puzzle pieces are moving into position. The trap is set, and as the world watches the screen until the very last second, one fundamental truth remains painfully clear. This moment right here, this tiny, seemingly insignificant shift in the timeline, has just changed everything forever. The sleek elevator of the Manhattan skyscraper came to a smooth, silent halt on the top-tier executive floor, the brushed steel doors sliding open to reveal a panoramic wall of glass overlooking the glittering expanse of the New York City skyline. The transition from the chaotic purple-soaked sea of John F. Kennedy International Airport to this quiet sanctuary of power and strategy felt stark, yet the underlying tension remained absolute. Namjoon stepped out first, his boots clicking rhythmically against the polished marble floor, followed closely by Hoseok, Jimin, Taehyung, and Jungkook. They did not linger or waste a single second admiring the breathtaking view of the urban sprawl below. Instead, they moved with a synchronized urgency into the main briefing room, where global strategists, creative directors, and media liaisons stood ready. The digital screens lining the perimeter wall flickered with real-time analytics, displaying staggering global metrics from their arrival. Millions of simultaneous live streams, trending topics dominating worldwide feeds, and an immediate surge in economic activity across the eastern seaboard as the Arirang World Tour momentum hit American soil. At the center of the expansive mahogany table lay a thick dossier stamped with confidential security seals, outlining the precise framework for the next phase of their massive North American takeover. While the public eye was fixated entirely on the visual spectacle of 5 members landing in New York, the overarching strategy, orchestrated by HYBE and the members themselves, was operating on a completely different dimensional plane. Jin and Suga, though executing separate specialized schedules overseas and managing critical post-enlistment milestones, maintained a continuous digital pipeline into the room. their presence projected onto a high-definition auxiliary screen at the head of the table. The synergy of OT7 remained an impenetrable shield. Every creative decision, from stadium set designs to secret drop rollouts, was vetted collectively. Jungkook leaned over the table, tracing his finger along the mapped itinerary of upcoming stadium dates, his expression intense and focused. Beside him, Jimin reviewed the translated transcripts of international media reactions, noting how seamlessly the narrative planted at the airport had successfully diverted mainstream attention away from their deeper collaborative surprises. The conversation quickly turned to the core of their artistic identity, their record-breaking fifth studio album, Erarang, and the monumental cultural movement driving their return. This was not merely a commercial concert series. It was an unprecedented cultural exchange, bridging centuries of Korean heritage with contemporary global pop culture, on a scale never before witnessed in entertainment history. Taehyung gestured toward a rendering of the upcoming stadium stage designs, emphasizing the integration of traditional Korean architectural motifs with cutting-edge holographic technology. Every member poured their personal philosophy into this era, Namjoon providing the intellectual and lyrical architecture, Hoseok anchoring the performance dynamics and stage choreography, Jimin infusing ethereal emotional resonance into the vocal arrangements, Taehyung shaping the avant-garde visual aesthetic, and Jungkook driving the powerhouse execution that left audiences spellbound night after night. They were rewriting the textbooks of modern pop stardom, proving that a 4-year hiatus had not dulled their edge, but rather sharpened their collective hunger and artistic vision. As the strategic briefing intensified, the discussion circled back to that subtle, electrifying moment back on the airport tarmac. The brief, coded glance shared between Namjoon and Jungkook under the flashing strobes of international press cameras. The hidden reality behind that micro-interaction began to unravel across the room, as lead producers confirmed that the secondary tactical phase was officially greenlit. The rumor mills churning across social media about a staggered global deployment were entirely accurate. The physical division of the members was a brilliant masterstroke designed to maximize media saturation across multiple continents simultaneously. While the New York contingent anchored the North American press explosion, invisible wheels were turning elsewhere to drop an unannounced visual project that would detonate across digital platforms before the week was out. The stakes were impossibly high, but the members wore the expressions of seasoned commanders who knew they held an unbeatable hand. The meeting concluded with a sharp, unified nod from Namjoon, who stood up and looked around the table at his brothers and their core team. There was no room for error, no time for fatigue, and no looking back. They walked out of the executive suite toward a private rehearsal and production staging zone deep within the facility, ready to fine-tune the massive spectacles that would soon fill packed stadiums across the continent. As the heavy studio doors closed behind them, the ultimate takeaway echoed with absolute clarity. The explosion in New York was only the first tremor of a global shift. The pieces are locked in motion, the narrative trap has snapped shut, and for millions of fans watching every single frame until the very last second, the true magnitude of what BTS has planned next is about to change the entire landscape of global music history forever.